Hi, I'm Bob Schoolcraft, pastor at Friendship United Methodist Church, Punta Gorda, Florida. I'd like to welcome you on this 21st day of November 2021. Thanksgiving week is upon us. Now, for some people, Thanksgiving is just another occasion for the two F's, fasting and football. As someone has said, if God meant for us to fast on Thanksgiving, he would have never created 30-pound turkeys. Now, I believe it was Irma Bombeck who said that the most remarkable thing about her mother is that for 30 years she served the family nothing but leftovers. The original meal has never been found, and some of us feel that way after Thanksgiving. Robert Orban reports on the practice of raising your holiday turkey. He says some people are squeamish about this, but not him. One January, we bought a turkey who became like a member of the family, says Orban. We kept him in the house, we fed him, we took him for walks, but when the time came, there was no nonsense about it. We had him for Christmas dinner. He sat on my right. Let me give you a little Thanksgiving trivia, if I may. Which fruit is responsible for preventing the Pilgrims from starving during their first winter in America? Think about it. And the answer is the pumpkin. The words of a Pilgrim's song highlight the Pilgrims' appreciation for pumpkin's aid in staving off hunger. We have pumpkin in the morning, we have pumpkin at noon. If it were not for pumpkin, we would soon be undone. Those early grim immigrants to this land did not have it easy, friends. John Palmer, a pastor in Live Oak, Florida, tells about the first Thanksgiving that he and his new bride spent together. Rather sparse. He was still in college. She was working part-time. There would be no traditional Thanksgiving feast for them that year until Palmer heard a radio ad. Test drive a new Buick and we'll give you a free turkey for Thanksgiving, the announcer said. And the young Palmers drove excitedly downtown, kicked a few tires, and test drove a lower-priced Buick that looked like one that they could realistically afford. And they spent a couple of hours, as you can imagine, with the salesman discussing the payments and interest rates. And they finally told the salesman, we need to go home and discuss it. And as they came to the door of the showroom, Palmer said in such a way as to make it appear as an afterthought, he says, what about the turkey that you mentioned in your commercial? And the salesman's eyes twinkled, and he motioned for them to follow. And they went outside, around back to a shed that was on the rear of the property. And he opened the door with a flourish and said, if you can catch one, you can have him. Inside were 10 full-grown live turkeys. Now, Palmer did not say what he did at this point, and maybe he and his bride had turkey value for Thanksgiving. Maybe the turkey sat on the right. I have no idea. But it made me think that Thanksgiving is really something that has to be caught. Most people will celebrate this day without giving a moment's thought to the significance. In the comic Hi and Lois, and I love the comics. I get a lot of my material from them, as you know. In the comic Hi and Lois, the son asked as they have gathered around the Thanksgiving, he said, why do we always have turkey on Thanksgiving? And Lois hesitantly answered, well, son, it's because it's a tradition. And the son asked, well, what's a tradition? And his brother interrupts to say something we've been doing for so long that we don't remember why. And that's the danger, isn't it? It really is. That we will forget what Thanksgiving is all about. And yet, I'm reminded of a church Thanksgiving party I heard about several years ago. The evening ended with a fellowship circle, and each participant was asked to say what he or she was especially thankful for on Thanksgiving. And many of the usual blessings were mentioned, but a small, timid, pale-faced young girl said, oh, I'm just thankful that I'm thankful. That seems like a particularly healthy emotion to me. We ought to be thankful that we are thankful. For one thing, when we are thankful, we're aware of our debts. Years ago, the English poet Lawrence Binyon wrote about the dead of World War I. They shall not grow old as we that left to grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Friends, a country that forgets its history doesn't deserve a future. A country that forgets its history doesn't deserve a future. I want you to think about that when we see history being removed in this country every day. A country that forgets its history doesn't deserve a future. A lot of people have made sacrifices so that we can live in this free and prosperous land. And I'm not talking about just soldiers, but about parents and grandparents. I'm talking about farmers and factory workers and coal miners. I'm talking about people who worked hard all their lives without much to show for it except the dream that someday their children would live much better. Ross Perot told about the day Mort Meyerson became the president of Electronic Data Systems, EDS. Mort's 95-year-old grandfather was there. And Mort's grandfather was forced to flee Russia many years ago because he happened to be a Jew. He lived in an attic in Brooklyn for 18 months, working as a tailor, so he could get enough money to buy a train ticket to Fort Worth, Texas. He reared a fine young son there, and then that son became Mort Meyerson's father. And now Granddad, 95 years old, was there to see Mort become president of a major corporation. And at the end of the meeting, Mort's grandfather came forward with tears in his eyes, and he hugged his grandson and said, "Son, through you, I have fulfilled all my dreams that I had as a young man when I came to America." That's the kind of debt many of us owe today. It's a debt that is owed to men and women whose names we don't even know. But they worked and they worshiped, and in some cases even gave their lives that we might have the benefits that we will celebrate this coming Thursday. When we are thankful, we acknowledge that we are in debt. And when we are thankful, we are also acknowledged that we have responsibilities. And those responsibilities are not to our ancestors, but to our descendants. There's an old Amish saying that goes like this: we didn't inherit the land from our fathers. We are borrowing it from our children. Carl Sagan, in commenting on the work of the Voyager spacecraft, put it this way: we have not found even a trace of life. Voyager reminds us of the rarity and the preciousness of life on Earth and our responsibility to preserve it. Friends, you and I have been given an amazing gift: a beautiful land, a prosperous land, a free land, and we're throwing it away. We're throwing it away. Will our children and our grandchildren be able to say the same that I'm saying now? Nothing we have done could have earned this privilege for us. Will they be able to say that? Thanksgiving would be a good time to consider the kind of country our earliest ancestors found when they stepped forth on this continent. It was a land of pristine mountains, pure lakes, all manners of animals roamed in abundance, 3.5 million miles of splendor from sea to shining sea. Today we have asphalt in place of animals, while skyscrapers shield the splendor. What kind of America will our grandchildren find? It won't be the land our ancestors found. The abuse of the earth is nothing new, of course. King Solomon sent work crews to cut the cedars of Lebanon to build the temple and a palace and grand buildings in Jerusalem. The denuded slopes of the mountains washed down and polluted the land and the water below, and today, there are only a dozen cedars of Lebanon left. An iron fence had been built around them to preserve them from tourists in a kind of museum. 400 years later, Plato warned the Greek people to stop cutting the trees. They went on cutting and cutting and cutting to make boats for commerce and war. Today, the area is one of the most environmentally damaged and stressed parts of the world. Environmental battles are nothing new, friends. And some people get very emotional when the debate centers on the environment versus jobs. But is that a choice that must be made? Can we not find ways to have both? Yes, we can. If we would put our overinflated egos aside and work together instead of insisting on either right or wrong. We all can't be right and we all can't be wrong. But if we work together, great things can happen that will be beneficial to the world around us and to our descendants in this great nation and in this world. Nature provides such a delicate balance. Somewhere I read about the Kaibab Plateau, and I've been there. It's beautiful, But it's an enormous wilderness in northern Arizona. It once supported a reasonably large deer population and a goodly number of predators, all in healthy balance with the environment. But the public, especially hunters, wanted more deer and felt this could be accomplished by killing the deer's natural predators. So a systematic program of slaughter was initiated, and from 1907 to 1923, 11 wolves, 600 cougars, and 3,000 coyotes were removed from the plateau. Before this, the deer population had been about 4,000 healthy animals, their numbers kept in check by the predators. With this check removed, the deer population increased spectacularly to about 100,000. But signs of distress started appearing quite rapidly. There was serious overbrowsing, and all vegetation was stripped bare to a height of almost 8 feet. That's the maximum that a starving deer can reach from just standing on its hind feet. A great famine in 1925, and more than half the deer starved to death in the next 2 years. By 1940, starvation was still killing more deer than the predators ever had, and the population was down to about 10,000. Overpopulation of deer is a continuing problem to this day. Nature provides such a delicate balance. We need to help it maintain that balance. Sure, there are extremists on both sides of important environmental questions, but Thanksgiving is a good time for us to reflect on our stewardship of this land and our responsibilities to those who come after us. When we are thankful, we acknowledge both our debts and our responsibilities. And finally, when we are thankful, we affirm our faith in God. Wouldn't it be awful, totally awful, to have all the bountiful blessings that you and I enjoy and have no one to thank? Thanksgiving is no holiday for atheists. Hal Olson, veteran missionary from Kenya, told of a doctor who had come to the field to use his skills to relieve suffering and pain. And on one occasion, he performed a delicate operation that saved a woman's life. As the patient recovered, she didn't express even one word of appreciation, and the doctor was hurt, quite frankly. Olson said, "One of the first things a new missionary must learn is that the people to whom he has been called aren't waiting with open arms to applaud his coming. Some tribal languages have no words to express the idea of thank you." Imagine that. No words by which to say thanks. That's sad, friends. That's sad. Most of us have had a need to say thank you. Most especially are we thankful at Thanksgiving for our freedom. Nikita Khrushchev, when premier of the then powerful Soviet Union, roared defiantly at the citizens of the world, of America. He says, "We will bury you. We will bury you without firing a shot." And he's beating his shoe on the table. Now, I understand that Nikita Khrushchev's son was granted citizenship into the United States several years ago. That's why we heed the words of the writer of Deuteronomy this day. "And you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land he has given you." Now, I don't know about you. I'm like that little girl. I'm thankful to be thankful. And I'm thankful that you are thankful. When we are truly thankful, we remember our debts to those who have gone before us. We remember our responsibilities to those who will come after us. And most importantly, we affirm our faith in God, who has given us every good thing. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy and give thanks to our Lord. Amen.